Throughout time, people across the world told each other tales of how they came to be, of heroes and monsters, romance and tragedy, death and rebirth. Mythology helped shape the ancient world, explaining the unexplainable. This is Mythology Unleashed. Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of love and beauty, was said to possess aesthetic beauty that no mortal could ever describe with spoken words. Beauty beyond compare. But that did not stop her from ever feeling threatened by other beings of great beauty, be they mortal or immortal. Such was the case for a young princess named Psyche, who would go on to capture the heart of the god of love himself. Psyche was the youngest of 3 sisters. The 2 elder girls were so stunning that they exceeded all other mortal women in their loveliness. But the beauty of Psyche was such that even goddesses envied her. People came from all over Greece to admire Psyche, and they were so enamored by her gorgeous appearance that they even began paying her divine honors normally reserved for Aphrodite, whose ceremonies were neglected, and whose temples were defaced. Angered by this insolence, insulted by this young girl's very existence, Aphrodite concocted a facetious plan to make poor Psyche suffer for the remainder of her life. She called upon her son Eros, the god of love, and compelled him to cast one of his enchanted arrows into Psyche's heart, so that she may fall in love with a hideous, abusive, and cruel being. Now some say that Eros was pricked by his own arrow, or that he himself could not resist her beauty. Either way, Eros fell madly in love with Psyche. He could not make that charming maiden fall in love with a horrible creature, but also decided not to tell his mother. Psyche, meanwhile, was deeply somber. Not only could she not fall in love with someone, but nobody seemed to fall in love with her. Men were content just to admire her before going along on their way. Her 2 sisters, though definitely less seductive, had already held 2 lavish weddings, each with a king. Psyche was the most beautiful girl on earth, but she was sad and lonely, always admired, but never truly loved. It seemed that no man wanted her as his wife. Psyche's father went to visit the Oracle of Delphi to ask Apollo for advice on the matter. Speaking through the oracle, Apollo decreed that Psyche was to be brought to the summit of a mountain, dressed in mourning attire, and to stay there alone. The husband that was assigned to her, that would only be with her at night, would arrive to claim her. None could imagine the despair of the family and friends of Psyche. But little did the king and queen know, and even less did Psyche, that the being described by the oracle was none other than Eros himself. Soon after, she was left alone upon the craggy mountain top. The frightened Psyche was lifted by Zephyrus, the west wind, who wafted her gently down into a deep valley, and laid her in a bed of fragrant flowers. In the midst of a nearby wood, Psyche happened upon a heavenly palace, so luxurious and splendid that the Olympian pantheon as a whole would have perhaps marveled at it. After being provided by a host of invisible servants, Psyche went to bed, and there in the darkness, she was visited by Eros, her unknown, unseen husband, who made a perfect consummation of their marriage, and left her just before dawn. In time, Psyche had grown pregnant with Eros' child, and she could not help but think that nothing could ever spoil her happiness. After some time, though, she began to miss her family. She asked her still unseen husband, who had explicitly told her that he would leave her if she ever saw his face, if it would be possible for her sisters to visit her from time to time. After she solemnly swore that she would ignore her sisters' pleas or advice, whatever they may be, Eros granted Psyche her wish. Thousands upon thousands of embraces were shared between the sisters, reunited after so long. Yet, with every succeeding visit, the sisters of Psyche grew more and more jealous of their siblings' extraordinary fortune. And when Psyche revealed to them that she had not the slightest idea of what her husband looks like, they frightened her with the idea that her husband could be an ugly beast with plans to devour their baby once it arrives. They convinced her to kill him. That very night, Psyche approached Eros as he slept, with a lantern in one hand and a blade in the other. It did not take her long to identify him. Not only did she recognize the immense beauty of Eros, but also his bow and arrows lying beside him. Awestruck and curious, she pulled one of the arrows out of the quiver and pricked herself. The pain startled her, and a drop of burning oil from her lantern fell upon the shoulder of Eros, waking him. As soon as he realized that his wife had broken her promise, he fled without a word. The arrow had done its work, and Psyche had fallen ever more intensely in love with Eros. Desperate to find her husband, Psyche started searching for Eros right away, wandering through country after country in vain. The gods were of no help either. Even Demeter and Hera refused to aid Psyche on her quest. Having exhausted all options, Psyche made her way to the palace of Aphrodite herself. Aphrodite's rage knew no bounds, furious at her son, and furious at this mortal woman. The goddess of love and beauty showed no mercy, and she submitted Psyche to incredible pain and torture, giving her tasks as formidable as those once given to Hercules. Aphrodite took a great quantity of wheat, barley, millet, poppy seed, peas, lentils, and beans, and mingled them all together in a giant heap. Psyche's task was to sort the seeds into separate piles within a single day. Fortunately, an ant overheard her and rounded up all the ants of his colony and helped Psyche complete her task. Next, Aphrodite tasked Psyche with gathering golden wool from a nearby flock of dangerous sheep. With guidance from the green reeds that seemed to speak to her, she waited until the sheep fell asleep in the heat of the afternoon, and gathered their golden fleeces. Psyche's third task was to fill a jar with the waters from the black and deadly river Styx, parts of which flowed to the top of a distant mountain. When Psyche at last reached the desired location, she found that on either side of the river lay a great, never-sleeping dragon, appointed to keep the waters safe. Seeing the girl in the dragon's presence, and remembering that he owed a favor to Eros, Zeus's eagle suddenly flew down from the clouds, snatched Psyche's jar out of her hands, and filled it to the top with the waters of the river Styx, before returning it to the maiden. Psyche joyfully returned to Aphrodite and ecstatically presented her with the jar. Aphrodite, however, had something else on her mind. The fourth and final task. Aphrodite sent Psyche to the underworld to ask from Persephone a day's worth of her beauty, to pack it in a box and return it to the goddess, without opening the box. Psyche found her way to the underworld, taking with her 2 coins and 2 pieces of bread soaked in barley and honey. she used the first coin to pay Charon for her fare across the river Styx, and the first piece of bread to calm Cerberus and be allowed entry to the domain of Hades. There she found Persephone, and fetched a little of the Queen of the Dead's beauty. Psyche ventured back to the land of the living, calming Cerberus with the second piece of bread, and paying Charon with her final coin. Psyche had successfully returned from the underworld with her prize, but she disobeyed the very last instruction, just as Pandora had done once with her jar. Psyche too opened the box of Persephone. Though the act was done neither out of curiosity nor of spite, Psyche had merely hoped that a dash of divine beauty would help her win back the love of Eros. However, she could perceive no beauty nor anything else, save only an infernal and deadly sleep. Eros, who could neither live with or without Psyche any longer, secretly flew out of his chamber and found Psyche. Upon reaching her, he wiped away the cloud of sleep from her face and put its essence back in the box. He lifted his beloved wife into the air, and Psyche was able to bring her present to Aphrodite, just in time. Not wishing to see her tortured any further, Eros petitioned Zeus for his blessing. Upon agreement, Zeus then made Psyche immortal by giving her ambrosia, not only so that she and Eros may be united, but so that Aphrodite may finally be appeased. In time, Psyche's baby was born, a daughter, who would go on to become the goddess of pleasure. The Tale of Eros and Psyche.